This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
From the dying, we've really learned how to, number one, prevent all of the scattered pieces of self, to help prevent it, and to reunite, reconnect, and be able to re-own and rehome those scattered pieces of self way before you get to the end of your life. And I'll never forget the veteran who we helped to do that one day, and he looked at me and he said, "Why did I have to be dying in order to learn how to do this?"
This is the Heart of Hospice podcast with Helen Bauer. My guests today are Anna Adams, founder of International Doula Life Movement, and Deborah Grassman, co-founder of Hospice. Whether you're a family caregiver or an end-of-life professional, the Heart of Hospice podcast is here to enhance your hospice experience by connecting you with information you can use about end-of-life care.
The sponsor for this week's episode is Barbara Carnes Books, featuring the work of award-winning hospice RN educator Barbara Carnes. BK Books is proud to offer the End-of-Life Guidelines series, a compilation of 5 essential education booklets designed to support those caring for terminally ill loved ones. Visit bkbooks.com today to order the End-of-Life Guidelines series to support your journey of compassionate caregiving. This episode is sponsored by Odonata Care, creators of the Hospice Care Plan. Hospice agencies and end-of-life doulas are now using the Hospice Care Plan booklet to support their patients and caregivers. It's become a trusted resource in the end-of-life community, helping to educate and equip caregivers. Visit thehospicecareplan.com today to purchase the Hospice Care Plan booklet.
Both of my guests are return guests today, and it's going to be an interesting conversation because we are hitting at the intersection of hospice and end-of-life care, end-of-life doula work, and end-of-life care for military veterans. And you're going to hear from the conversation that I'm having today with Anna Adams and Deborah Grassman about why that care is so specialized and so important. So, Anna Adams, my friend from International Doula Life Movement, is an end-of-life doula and an end-of-life educator. She is the founder of International Doula Life Movement, an organization that offers international doulas of all specialties a values and mission-based education. They have a resource center and a community committed to helping them support others. Deborah Grassman, also a return guest and a friend, is the founder of Hospice. She's recognized as one of the nation's leading experts in caring for veterans nearing the end of life. Her clinical work was key in establishing the National Hospice and Veteran Partnership and the We Honor Veterans program, both of which are collaborative efforts between the VA and NHPCO, which is the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. In 2002, Deborah introduced pinning ceremonies to honor dying veterans. It's a ceremony that has become a standard practice with hospice agencies and long-term care facilities all across the United States. In 2012, Deborah founded Hospice to provide educational programs that respond to traumatic soul injuries. Her work on identifying and responding to soul injury has precipitated research and publications to help people heal the relationships they have within themselves. So this is a fantastic conversation with some very skilled practitioners, people who are working in the end-of-life space. Hospice and International Doula Life Movement are collaborating on a workshop at the Tree of Life conference that's coming up on November 1st, 2024 in San Antonio, Texas. Opus Peace is going to be featured on the entire first day of the conference. They're going to be teaching end-of-life doulas and any other attendees that are there how to provide specialized care for military veterans at end of life. Deborah's going to be detailing some of the symptoms that end-of-life workers should look for when caring for military veterans, indications of PTSD, and the need for more specialized, intense counseling. So sit back and enjoy. This is a really informative conversation. There's some great resources there. If you'd like more information about the Tree of Life Conference, you can go to internationaldoulalifemovement.com and click on conference. That'll get you there to the registration page and all the information about the speakers. If you're interested in the free download, the inventory that Deborah was talking about, or you're interested in the online classes and resources that Opus Peace has to offer, check out their website, opuspeace.org. So it's OPUSPEACE.org. You can check out the information on soul injury and also Anchor Your Heart Day, the national day they have established on February 2nd. Lots of great resources there. So here's a great conversation with Anna Adams and Deborah Grassman. Deborah and Anna, welcome to the Heart of Hospice podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, Alan.
Well, both of you are return guests, so it's like having friends back on the show. We're going to have a really good conversation. We've got a new event coming up later on in 2024 that you guys are collaborating on, and we're going to highlight that. But just to get to know you a little bit, remind my listeners about who you are. Deborah, let's start with you. What's a ritual that you use to end your day?
Well, it's actually something that I used to do with my hospice patients. I would always ask them the question, is there anything that, or pretend like you died today, what would be left unsaid or undone? So it's a good question to ask ourselves at the end of each day. We don't have to be dying in order to, recognize what kind of unfinished business might be at hand. So I do that as I complete a day and I'm busy and, I forget to do stuff and stuff gets crowded out. And at the end of the day, then I can just sit back and say, oh, pretend like I died today. What would be left unsaid or undone? And that kind of gives me my marching orders for the next day then to make up for that and go back and reach back and do it.
That is so powerful, Deborah. An amazing thing. I was thinking, she washes her face and takes a shower, says a prayer or meditates or something like that. And you come up with something really deep. I like it. Okay, Anna, now it's your turn. What is a ritual that you use to start your day?
To start my day, I like to take a contemplative moment and do maybe some box breathing. It really helps to center myself and prepare myself to get the day started. I'm taking that 15 minutes at least in the morning to just be at peace.
Describe the box breathing. Tell my listeners what that means.
So box breathing is where you think of a square and you would breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to release 1, 2, 3, 4. And you go through the 4 corners or the 4 sections of the box.
Yeah, like a square.
Mm-hmm. So it really gets you to be kind of intentional. But what I really like is the releasing the air, which sounds probably a little crazy, but because I find myself pushing, just feeling my body just pushing things out. And it feels like I'm more clear, mind-wise, spirit-wise, body-wise. I just feel like it really pushes everything out of me.
Do you feel like when you're exhaling that you're pushing out the negative stuff like tension and tightness and stress?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like a clean feeling when you're done, that it's all out. I'm just like, okay, I'm fresh now. I've got a new start to the new day.
Oh, that's a nice thought. I like that one. All right. Well, we're going to jump into this because we've got a lot of content. I got a lot of questions, probably more than we can talk about today, but we're going to try to get to as much as we can. And then we're going to talk about the conference because you guys, IDLM has a special event coming up and Opus Peace is going to be there for a full day to open the conference. And I want to make sure that we touch on that and talk about it. Anna, let's just start with International Doula Life Movement. Tell me the work in a nutshell, what the mission of IDLM is.
Our mission is to raise the bar in end of life work and the support that is given to clients, and changing that by community to the next community, every community, building communities, and providing a support, as well as making sure that no matter whether that person who is called to this line of work, that if they don't have the funds, making sure that they have a community of doula support and education to guide them through that journey.
And you guys offer resources, classes, training, and you also offer like business support because being an end-of-life doula, they work independently and they're basically their own small business. They're self-employed. So one of the things IDLM offers is support for doulas to know how to actually conduct the business side of things. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Every student receives a free business 101 course with our programming, plus one-on-one support with myself or our executive director, Pamela Carter. So they always have someone to turn to. They all receive our personal phone numbers to reach out to us, or they're trying to set everything up for their business.
Nice. Okay, Deborah, your turn. Opus Peace, doing some amazing, amazing work, growing and thriving, and you are the founder. Tell me about and introduce me and my listeners to the work that Opus Peace is doing.
Surely. Well, we are a not-for-profit with a mission of helping people heal the relationship that they have with themselves. And it was started by 5 VA hospice nurses, and we had taken care of more than 10,000 dying veterans over a 30-year career. And those dying veterans taught us how to attain personal peace. And paradoxically, those lessons about peace came from people who had been trained for war. So that is what we do, and that is our mission, because as we all know, dying people know things that the rest of us do not, right? You know, the day before you're given a terminal diagnosis, you sort of take your life for granted. The day after you're given a terminal diagnosis, you wake up. And so you wake up to the idea that your life matters. You know, that's for all of us that work in the hospice field or doulas. That's kind of a unique perspective. Many people have had people die in their midst, you know, a relative or something, one or two. But when you've seen thousands, they leave their footprints on not just your heart, but on your soul.
We actually learn from the dying as we take care of them.
Yeah, when I look back on my life, you know, at my age now, I realize that, you know, everything really that I've learned that really matters, I've learned from the dying. They have a unique perspective. There's a wisdom that emerges at the end of life. That's the advantage viewpoint that those of us, you know, who work in that field have witnessed. And of course, working with veterans, I've had the whole arena of trauma also. So it's kind of, I've had the advantage of seeing, I mean, there's thousands of people who worked with PTSD and trauma patients. There's thousands of people that work with dying and hospice patients, but very few have worked with the convergence of both of those patient populations. And that's why the PTSD community has been so interested in what we have to offer, because they know that we offer the end of life perspective for trauma and for veterans. And PTSD tends to morph at the end of life as the conscious mind starts getting weaker and can't hold down and tamp down those memories. And oftentimes stuff surfaces at the end of life that can cause an agitated death, for example, or some complications. So I think that's one of the unique things that we have to offer. But the other unique thing is really as the veil gets very thin at the end of life and you start connecting with your being, that too has some advantages. And so we created some tools that we use to help people connect with their being.
It's very interesting work and very valuable these days. So, Deborah, tell me how doulas can enhance their practice with the resources and the training that Opus Peace provides.
Well, we have several different options. Number one is we have all of our courses now have been transferred and translated into online courses that the doulas can take individually, in their own home, one-on-one, or to do classes together and build community together and learning together. So we have courses on with veterans, several different courses about veteran and veteran care, on sexual violence. We have courses on soul injury and, of course, grieving. We have courses on helplessness, which is a hugely important, overlooked area of needed education and support. So, at any rate, we have those. We have leadership training. We offer a 4-day institute with leadership training, in which at the end the participants come out with a jump drive with all the PowerPoints and everything they need. They can literally plug and play and go forth and put on in-services with whomever, the workplace, in the community, with their family, those types of things. We have an annual national, global, actually, Anchor Your Heart Day. That's on February 2nd, which is Groundhog Day. And there's a reason why we do it, because that's where we connect with our shadow. And that's why we do it on February 2nd. So, and we have, films on forgiveness and veterans and other things too. So anyway, we have a variety. Of course, we do public speaking and put on workshops and what have you as well. So those are kind of our resources. We have a lot of published materials. We have a research article coming out about soul injury and our tools in the Hospice and Palliative Care Journal just this next month. And of course, I have 2 books, Peace at Last and The Hero Within, and we have a soul injury book coming out at the end of the year. So array of resources that people can target depending on their learning style and their topic of interest. We've really been able to expand the dying perspective to at any time of life, including children. So again, it goes way beyond veterans. It goes way beyond dying, and it really is about soul injury. And the definition, we define soul injury as a wound that separates you from your own sense of self. And when we're talking about our sense of self, we're talking about our real self. And the real self is not just some idealized, perfect place within you that has no flaws or failures. The real self includes the totality of who you are. It's the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, you see. And that real self includes the shadow, where you unconsciously stuff all those parts of yourself that you don't like or you don't want to face. The real self includes all the facades that you use to hide behind, and it's not that facades are bad. We need facades in untrustworthy environments, but the problem occurs when people mistakenly think that the facade is their real self. So that's really at the core. And that's really when you come to the end of your life Oftentimes that facade's going to crumble automatically. It's a natural part of the dying process. So it just sort of crumbles. And then there you are with kind of all these scattered pieces of self. So, learning from the dying, we've really learned how to, number one, prevent all of the scattered pieces of self, to help prevent it, and to reunite, reconnect, and be able to reown and rehome those scattered pieces of self way before you get to the end of your life. And I'll never forget the veteran who we helped to do that one day. And he looked at me and he said, "Why did I have to be dying in order to learn how to do this?"
Yeah.
Such a provocative question and a poignant question, because obviously the answer is you don't. You don't. But we saw that often enough with veterans asking us that it really did prompt the five of us to start this movement about soul injury. And, when we get separated from our own sense, from our real self, that's a real loss. That's a real loss.
So the reason this conversation is sort of arriving at this intersection, end-of-life doulas, hospice, Opus Peace with soul injury, self-forgiveness, and the work that we are all doing, right, from these different sectors, is because 1 out of every 4 Medicare hospice patients in the U.S. is a military veteran. Hospice works with them. End-of-life doulas work with them. Opus Peace knows them. The founders worked with, 10,000 military veterans at end of life. So there's this juncture of need where each discipline becomes involved, each organization becomes involved. So that's why this conversation today is happening. We in hospice, regardless of discipline, including end-of-life doulas, so let's say end-of-life workers, not just hospice workers, but end-of-life workers. A lot of us are working with military veterans, and their care at end of life is different. So, Anna, when it comes to an end-of-life doula and their involvement in the care of a military veteran at the end of life, what role does a doula play in that care? And can a person benefit from having a doula even if they've already got hospice?
Well, yes, everyone can benefit for having a doula even before hospice, during hospice, and after hospice. But what I do have to think about as our role as a doula in providing and working with clients is that, and this is why I really love our partnership with Opus Peace, because not just only our clients that we're working with, they may or may not even be a veteran, but those, especially our veterans, they have a lot to get off their chest. And so if we can support them, this is a great tool to use and learn from Opus Peace to be able to even support them even better. And I love what Ms. Deborah said a few minutes ago about how everyone can utilize a soul injury. Well, a doula can look at that inventory and look through that with a client, whether it's a veteran or a non-veteran. And because, especially, we always say, and this is really just an ideal MI thing, I guess, is that people working with people before terminal illness. So if we could get that extra reach out to them to look at the soul injury before, then I think we're helping Opus Peace in their mission of getting that information out sooner rather than later. And even during those times, because also too, we get called in majority of the time so late when things have already happened and transpired. We're getting called on a crisis moment of, we don't know what to do. So we have to come in, of course, build a relationship and some trust. So we do have our veterans that need that extra support. Just going through the Veterans Administration itself is a really big organization to go through. There's a lot of different channels. You have to talk to this person, that person, and that is overwhelming. We already think about, okay, well, we've just been diagnosed with a terminal diagnosis, or we already have this going on. Now we're dying here, and families are feeling overwhelmed. And so being able to come in as a doula and know, okay, this is where we need to go to first. This is where we reach out to. These are the steps. And then also providing that support for the emotional side and the spiritual. And so that all falls into our holistic rim that we are working as a doula.
I hope you're enjoying this episode. We're going to pause for just a minute. My guest has more to share.
The sponsor for this week's episode is Barbara Carnes Books, featuring the work of award-winning hospice RN educator Barbara Carnes. BK Books is proud to offer the End of Life Guidelines series, a compilation of 5 essential education booklets designed to support those caring for terminally ill loved ones. At the heart of this bundle is Gone From My Sight, affectionately known as the Hospice Blue Book, a timeless resource that has touched over 40 million lives. This bundle is more than just information. It's a lifeline for families navigating the difficult stages of the dying process, offering guidance for the last months, weeks, days, and hours. Trusted by end-of-life workers nationwide, the booklets provide direction for managing symptoms, explain the dying process, address pain medication use, and offer suggestions for moving forward with grief. The End of Life Guidelines series bundle from Barbara Carnes equips you with knowledge and tools to provide the best possible care. The bundle helps hospice agencies better educate patients and families, providing easy-to-understand guidance that can improve scores on their CAHPS satisfaction surveys. It's the ultimate caregiver's companion. Use it as part of your care plan today. Visit bkbooks.com today to order the End of Life Guidelines series to support your journey of compassionate caregiving.
One of the things that you said that really strikes me is one person is going to be dying, but you said the situation comes to you. We're called in, hospice or doulas are called in, and they say, we're dying. We are dying here. And it's not just that physical dying, it's we're dying for information. We're dying from overwhelm. We're dying because we need support. We're drowning in it. I think that's so expressive of exactly what a lot of families and terminally ill folks go through. So Deborah, I want to punt this one to you. We always have to be really careful when it comes to interdisciplinary teams to make sure that the folks with the right training and the right skills are the ones that are addressing the problems. As a hospice nurse, I would never say that I've had enough training to be able to counsel someone who has PTSD. I would be able to support, but it would definitely go to somebody who has counseling experience and training. Our social workers, we would refer those folks to the members on the team that are most appropriate for those issues. What are some of the symptoms that end-of-life workers, doulas, and nurses should look for with our military veterans at end of life that would indicate that they really need some specialized care from our counselors and our social workers?
Well, a couple of things. Obviously, the first thing you have to find out is whether or not they are a veteran to know that if that would even be. So the question has to be asked. And that sounds sort of obvious, but a lot of times it's not asked. So that would be number one. If they are a veteran, my next question would be something to the effect of, is there anything from your military experience that may still be troubling you now? And then the most important thing to do is to sit quietly with a long pause afterward to give them a chance to kind of reflect on that. So that would be another thing. Another thing is they typically have a stoic wall. That was stoicism very important in the military. And after they're discharged from the military, it often persists a lifetime all the way to the very end of their life. And as they are starting to become more and more helpless and they are losing more and more of their independence, they're not going to like that one bit. They're used to protecting and being the protector of the family. So being able to have conversations about what it might feel like to, in fact, be so helpless. Crafting questions like, I'm guessing you might get quite a bit angry when you realize how helpless you are becoming. Just being able to give their experience a word, and then that opens up a whole dialogue. So a lot of it is about knowing how to create a safe, emotional environment so that whatever they're feeling or thinking can come forth. So that brings me to the next thing, which is, to answer your question, what symptoms is agitation. The literature says that up to 40% of all of us, as we're dying, will have what's called a terminal restlessness. And for many years, I, was seeing a lot of terminal restlessness, and we typically would treat that with a benzodiazepine, such as Ativan or something, only it made some people worse. Instead of calming them down, they actually got more agitated. And it took me a while to realize that it was the combat veterans, it was the people with PTSD that had this kind of paradoxical reaction to a benzodiazepine. And then it suddenly occurred to me, oh my gosh, we're not looking at terminal restlessness here. We're looking at PTSD becoming unmasked. Undiagnosed PTSD. The conscious mind is off, and here this is full blown. And what happens when people are originally traumatized decades before, they feel very, very helpless. Now they're at the end of their life. And what are they feeling? Helpless. That unconscious feeling acts as a trigger for what they had been experiencing years before. So now you give them a medication that makes them feel more helpless. So they fight harder to try to regain control. So when you get a paradoxical reaction with an agitated patient, you should be thinking, whether it's military or not, past trauma in which they felt helpless. So, and the other big thing is, the moral injury. Inquiring, if there is something, that's still troubling them. It's often a moral injury that they experienced, whether watching other people be killed, whether having killed others, whether having been sexually traumatized themselves in the military. It's more common than you think. Those types of things, you want to create a safe emotional environment so those things can come forth. So if someone expresses, that they feel guilty because they killed someone, you don't want to respond with something like, well, you were in a kill or be killed situation, or you were just following orders. That's what you were supposed to do. Those types of things. Believe me, they've been told those things for decades. And it's still there 50 years later. So maybe, telling them that if they feel guilty, they feel guilty. And if it's an irrational guilt, then I usually lead them more toward helping them feel how helpless they were. They were in a situation that they could not control. So there's no point in feeling guilty if you're not responsible for something. So, that's a more in-depth conversation. But those are some of the things. I've put out kind of a lot of things there that it requires some skill sets to be able to do. So and if there's forgiveness is an issue, then it's probably a clergy type person that you may want to invite in, not necessarily a religious person, but someone that's spiritual, because our client base is from all different kinds of religions. But if they are very religious, you want to get someone from that particular religion for them. So it's that type of assessment and matching up.
Yeah, the assessing is super important to make sure you connect the right people who have the right skills and the right resources. So we're talking about this as a focus on veterans, but what you're talking about is trauma-informed care, which is something that's really, it's become sort of a trendy conversation, but it's absolutely true, because we have people that have experienced all sorts of traumas. PTSD can come from previous bad interactions with medical personnel. Being in car accidents, having a history of abuse, being involved in a violent crime. There's so many different things that can create a need for trauma-informed care. And I love the way you led in with the assessments, because it's super important for us to ask and then listen just to even get it started.
Well, I think one of the easiest ways, and Anna already identified it, and that is we have developed a well-researched tool for evaluating soul injury. So that's great. Okay. But the more important thing about that is it allows a non-threatening, a very safe way to open the door for a meaningful conversation. At end of life, you don't have a lot of time to gain their trust. You're not going to be doing PTSD therapy for years on this, or even weeks. A lot of times you only have a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, maybe a year. You need to be able to gain their trust very quickly. So the soul injury inventory is right on our website, but you can easily do that. We have a lot of hospices and other agencies, sexually violent agencies too, that use it just to open the door and let them kind of initiate it. And the other thing that you can do is give it to a family member. Let's just say you have a stoic veteran or what have you. Give it to a family member. Say, you answer what you think he would say. And that gives you the family's perspective on it too. But at any rate, it just opens the door very quickly. And for me in my practice, we ran an acute hospice, so our length of stay was very short. So that's why I had to learn to be very effective very quickly. And that's really how the soul injury inventory started coming up, is because I had to be able to gain trust within that first day and kind of leave them with some homework. I'd leave them with an inventory and say, I'm going to give this to you. You just look it over, see what you think, and tomorrow I'll come back and you can tell me what you think. And I would come back. Well, the door, overnight as they're reading, of course, most of them were in the hospital, they had it right there. Or a family member would come visit that night and they'd see this inventory sitting there and they would start the conversation. By the time I'd come back, they had discussed a lot of unfinished business, so to speak, before I even came back. So it saved me a lot of time as well. So it is an experiential tool in a way that really opens doors for meaningful conversations. And I think that's really the doulas recognized the value of that and see really the opportunity. And I think really that we should be so excited that this is coming from end-of-life care, so to speak. The whole soul injury movement is coming from end-of-life care. Oftentimes we're viewed as we don't have anything to offer healthcare and medical. It's just when you can't do anything, toss them off to hospice or the doulas or whatever. And no, I got to tell you, we've got a lot to offer people from the day they're born. Soul injury is hopefully going to be recognized in that vein, and it's certainly growing in that direction. It's kind of crazy when you think about it that most of us have experienced a time in our life when we became separated from ourselves, lost who we were, so to speak, and those kinds of things, and yet we've never really had a name for it or a term for it, so we could have a meaningful conversation that helps us heal the relationship that we have with ourselves so that we can become whole. And that's, I think that's what the doulas, so much of the respect that I have for them is they really are holistic, and they can bring even to hospice. And I hate to say this, but in so many ways, hospice has become medicalized. And because hospice has become medicalized, some of that is because hospice joined with palliative care, and palliative care needs to be medicalized, and the idea was to bring hospice upstream. But unfortunately, I think some of, at least what I've witnessed over 30 years of doing hospice work, is that instead palliative care has kind of infiltrated hospice care to the point that we need doulas to augment what is happening. So they're bringing a holism that sadly, I would say, at least from what I have witnessed over the last few decades, has gradually kind of been squeezed out of hospice care. So doulas are kind of the, harbingers of saying, hey, wait a minute. There's more to this than just the medical aspect. There's more to this than that. So I think that's maybe doulas can bring hospice back to their roots of how they had originated, which was very holistic, and that has gotten lost, frankly. And so the doulas have recognized that and are bringing that back. Thank God. Thank God for them.
I think in a lot of ways we're unlearning what we have learned to do. All this so-called progress, I think we're unlearning, and doulas are a huge part of that.
I'll tell you, sort of what happened was, I mean, if you look at some, this is not my opinion, this is other well-published material, is that once Medicare started reimbursing hospices for their services, and before that it was all volunteer work, and hospices need to be reimbursed, don't get me wrong, but it did change the direction, change the trajectory of hospice, and over time, and it was predicted it would do this, that it would become Medicare driven rather than hospice philosophy driven, and that in fact I think has proven to be true.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people that work in this so-called industry, I hate it that we're using the word industry and system and business, but we're really talking about humans taking care of other humans at the end of their lives. It just seems square peg, round hole.
Well, I think the other fallacy is that anyone can take care of a dying patient, so hospitals think they can do it. Home care agencies think they can do it. They not really recognize it is truly, if you're going to help someone die healed, that is a specialty. It is a skilled set. It is a devotion, again, that the doulas bring. But to think that just anybody can do it, I'll give them this one-day class on hospice, and you can turn a home care nurse into a hospice nurse, or social worker, or any other discipline. That's, in my mind, that's a fallacy. Hospice needs to stop being afraid of who we are and who we are not.
We're going to break for just a minute. This isn't the end of the episode. There's more to come, so stay connected.
If you're a hospice caregiver looking for resources to enhance your care, look no further than the Hospice Care Plan, a plan to comfort. Available in both English or Spanish, this invaluable resource is designed to support caregivers in providing the best possible care for their loved ones. The Hospice Care Plan from Odonata Care now has integrated QR codes in each section of the booklet. Readers simply scan the code with a smartphone, and a free playlist of videos provides practical tips for caregiving and symptom management. It's like having a personalized guide at your fingertips. Caregivers will find 150 videos offering expert advice and practical guidance to navigate every aspect of caregiving. Hospice agencies and end-of-life doulas are now using the Hospice Care Plan booklet to support their patients and caregivers. It's become a trusted resource in the end-of-life community, helping to educate and equip caregivers. Visit thehospicecareplan.com today to purchase the Hospice Care Plan booklet. Empower yourself and the ones you care for with the Hospice Care Plan, a plan to comfort. That's thehospicecareplan.com.
So, Anna, International Doula Life Movement is providing a really unique opportunity coming up later in November of 2024. And Hospice is going to be a big part of that. Some amazing education opportunities, connecting opportunities. Tell my listeners about the Tree of Life Conference.
So we are super excited. It's something that's been put in our heart for a while. And I often travel to a lot of different conferences, and it's like, why isn't there one for doulas? So where we focus on a lot of the things and a little bit taking things outside the box as well. So we have an amazing lineup set up. If you go to our website and hit conference, right on the top, there's a conference tab. You'll see all the details. It is from November 1st through the 4th. And we have some amazing guests, and we'll be sharing and kicking off the Friday with Hospice, doing an all-day workshop. And then we're going to have a nice little ceremony to celebrate veterans. in the afternoon.
Awesome. Awesome. So what, on the other 3 days, because you guys have a big lineup, what other content and who do you recommend attend? People who are already working as doulas or people who are just interested in end-of-life doula work? Who is your target audience?
Everyone is welcome, but if you are thinking about becoming a doula, you feel called to this area, if you are a doula already working out in your community, if you are a hospice or any discipline, come join us. Really, because I honestly feel and learn that our nurses are amazing and our staff in our medical field are amazing, but hospice has its own unique way of things and learning, and people don't get all the full details when we're going through our schooling for nursing school or our doctorate school. This is a great opportunity to kind of dive in a little bit more deeper in that for them, and also get to learn and see how doulas come together and work together. We're learning so many different, we have amazing trainings that are going to be coming. And the good thing is, I have to say, Helen, is that everybody gets to see everything. So we're not doing separate, because we always find that, oh, I want to go see that one, but I also want to see this one. You're not going to have to worry about that. Everybody will be together. We're going to be learning together. We have you'll get to hear all the guests speaking and educating. We have everything from, talking about Hispanic and Latino community and going through that process, with also our men's grief, as well as Tony Lynch is going to be joining us, and hitting on dementia, just so many different topics that we kept trying to keep it condensed, but we got through the 4 days. And when I said, can we add this in my team's like, no, people's minds are going to explode because there's so much information. And plus we're going to have fun. So get to finally connect and be in person with everybody. So we're super excited.
So tell me how attendees that are interested can register, Anna.
Yes. So if you go to our website at International Doula Life Movement, I'm going to slow down that and say it one more time, internationaldoulalifemovement.com. And you will see a link that says conference. You can click that there. The registration form is there, the link to register. The hotel with a special discount link is also there for you. And you'll be able to see the list of speakers and topics. And it's getting updated because we still have a few more that are getting added in there. So be sure to keep checking back, because you'll get to see some added information up there as well.
Wonderful. Deborah, if somebody is wanting to connect with Opus Peace, how can they connect with you? I'm hoping that the inventory that you mentioned is a free downloadable resource.
Absolutely. We have a lot of free resources. And when I talked about the we call it Masterpiece, is our online courses. There's a free video lesson in every single course. And that way you can watch it and you can see. Those in and of themselves are great resources. Just go through and click on all of our free stuff. So number one, we use a very profound grounding technique called Anchor Your Heart. And we have an 11-minute free video where you can actually take that, download it, go teach it to other people. We get a lot of feedback, but a lot of research on that and how well that works, as well as a 1 hour, we have a couple 1 hour videos that are free as well on our website. So it's Opus Peace, OPUSPEACE.org. Or if you can remember better, Soul, SOUL, soulinjury.org. Either way will get you to the same website. And I would just encourage you to explore. You'll find a lot there, just website. Our goal really is to help people heal the relationship they have with themselves, and they really can get started just by going on the website. We also do webinars every month. Usually the last Tuesday of the month is about 75% of them are that time. But they can go on our website and see when those are, and get on our mailing list, and we'll let them know.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Your work is so valuable. The generosity, the openness, the honesty, and wanting to improve your community and the care of not just veterans at the end of life, but everybody, all the humans that we take care of. So thank you so much for spending time with me today.
You're welcome.
you.
Be sure to catch the next episode of the Heart of Hospice podcast. You can find more episodes on theheartofhospice.com. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. You can connect with the Heart of Hospice podcast on Facebook and Instagram and send your questions or comments by email to helen@theheartofhospice.com. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.